So today we are going to revise lesson number 13, the selfish giant, part 2. So one morning, the giant was lying awake in his bed. Suddenly, he heard lovely music. It was sweet and melodious. It was a song of a little bird. The spring has come at last, said the giant to himself. So the giant who was sleeping in his room, he heard beautiful music and he thought that the spring has come. Okay, he was sleeping since in his garden there was still winter, there was still frost, so there was no spring there. So he thought of that spring was delayed. But this morning he heard the beautiful melodious song and he understood that the spring had come. He leaped out of the bed and looked out. He saw something marvelous. The trees in his garden were full of fine blossoms. The flower plants were covered with flowers. The birds were flying about and singing. Snow was nowhere to be seen. North wind had stopped roaring. Hailstones had disappeared. Winter was gone. Spring had come. It was a lovely scene. The giant was delighted. Then he noticed that there were boys on every tree. They had come through a hole in the wall. They had brought the spring. They had brought the change. Now, when he heard, जब उसने चिड़ियों की चहचहाट सुनी, वो जल्दी से उठा और अपने खिड़की से बाहर देखा. और क्या देखता है कि हर एक पेड़ पर अच्छे अच्छे फूल और फल उगे हुए हैं, आ गए हैं. सब में पेड़, सब सारे पौधों में, सारे पेड़ पौधों में हरे हरे पत्ते और फूल सब आ गए थे. और उसने देखा कि सारे के सारे पेड़, जितने भी पेड़ थे, सब में खूबसूरत फूल और फल और नए नए पत्ते सब आ गए. और उसने क्या देखा कि उसके गार्डन से सारा का सारा जो स्नो था, हेलस्टोन था, सब चले गए. द विंटर had disappeared from his garden. There was no winter anymore in his garden, whereas every tree had blossomed, every tree had new leaves, new flowers and new fruits were there. Then he also saw that each and every tree there was a boy. Okay, there, on every tree there was a boy sitting. He was very delighted that they all had come back. They all came through a hole. एक दीवार में एक छेद बनाया गया था. उस छेद में से ये सारे बच्चे वहां पर आए और एक एक पेड़ के ऊपर बैठे हुए थे. और वो समझ गया कि इन बच्चों के वजह से उसके बगीचे में ये रौनक आ गई है. In one corner it was still winter. He wondered why. Soon he understood the reason. A little boy was standing under a tree crying. He was too small to climb. The poor tree was still covered with frost and snow. North wind was blowing and roaring above it. Climb up, little boy, I am bending, said the tree, and it bent its branches as low as it could. But the boy was too young to climb by himself. तभी उसने देखा उसके बगीचे के एक कोने में अभी भी सर्दी थी. अभी भी उस पेड़ पे स्नो था, सर्दी थी. और उसने देखा कि उस पेड़ के पास में एक छोटा बच्चा खड़ा था. He saw that in the corner of his garden there was still winter because a child was there, it could not climb. And he understood, he realized, he found out the reason why. Now the child was very small, he could not climb on the tree. वो पेड़ के ऊपर नहीं चढ़ पा रहा था, जबकि पेड़ उससे कह रहा था कि बेटा तुम चढ़ो मेरे ऊपर, मैं झुकता हूँ नीचे. वो और नीचे झुकता गया, लेकिन बच्चा उस पर चढ़ नहीं पा रहा था क्योंकि वो बहुत छोटा था, उसकी हाइट बहुत छोटी थी. तो द जायंट अंडरस्टूड दैट ही कैन नॉट क्लाइंब ऑन टू द ट्री बाय हिमसेल्फ. द सीन मेल्टेड द हार्ट ऑफ द जायंट. हाउ सेल्फिश आई हैव बीन. नाउ आई नो why the spring wouldn't come. I will pull down the wall. My garden will be the children's playground forever, said the giant to himself. He was really sorry for what he had done. Now this scene, ये जो दृश्य था, जो बच्चा रो रहा था, वो पेड़ पे चढ़ नहीं पा रहा था, उसने उसके दिल को पिघला दिया. उसके जो हार्ड दिल था, जो कठोर दिल था, उसको पिघला दिया और वो समझ गया. द जायंट अंडरस्टूड दैट हाउ सेल्फिश आई वॉज, मैं कितना सेल्फिश था कि मैंने बच्चों को भी आने नहीं दिया. और अगर ये स्प्रिंग मेरे गार्डन में आया है तो सिर्फ और सिर्फ इन बच्चों की वजह से. तो मेरा जो गार्डन है वो आज के बाद से सिर्फ बच्चों के लिए होगा और किसी के लिए नहीं होगा. मैं सारी जो दीवार बनाई है मैंने, उस दीवार को मैं तोड़ डालूंगा. एंड ही ब्रेक्स द वॉल्स ऑफ द गार्डन and says that I am sorry that I haven't understood the real meaning of love, the real meaning of this garden, that this garden is not for me, it is for children. The children must come inside. So he went downstairs and came into the garden. But when the children saw him coming, they quickly climbed down and ran away. Winter came back at once. Snow and frost returned immediately. The little boy didn't see him coming. The giant slowly crept from behind. He lifted him up gently and put him up on the tree. The tree at once burst into blossoms. The birds came flying above the tree. The little boy was now happy. He stretched out his arms around the neck of the giant and kissed him. When the other children saw that the giant had become kind and gentle, they all came running in. With them came spring. The trees were once again full of fresh leaves. Flower plants also smiled. Birds clapped their wings in joy. अब क्या हुआ, जो जायंट है वो अपने घर से बाहर आया. जैसे ही वो बाहर आया सारे बच्चे डर गए और वो लोग जल्दी से पेड़ से नीचे उतरकर भागने लगे. और ऐसा करने से क्या हुआ कि वापस विंटर, स्नो, नॉर्थ विंड सब लौट आए. जो खिले हुए पौधे थे, जो पत्ते थे, सब वापस सूख गए, मुरझा गए. The child was standing there and weeping. He was not knowing that the giant was coming from behind. Giant came quietly. He lifted the child and made him sit onto the tree. The moment the child sat on the tree blossomed with a lot of beautiful flowers and sweet fruits and all. And the child hugged the giant and kissed him on his cheek. Now seeing this, the rest of the children, those who ran away, they were watching him. So they saw that the giant has become kind. He has changed. He has become very kind, very lovable. So they also came running into the garden once again. As they came inside, same way the spring also followed them. And again all the trees, all the plants became flourish. They all had beautiful flowers, beautiful sweet fruits and all. And the whole garden once again became alive and active. It is your garden now, my dear children, said the giant. You are all free to play, run around and enjoy the fruits. It is all yours. He then knocked down the wall. जैसे ही बच्चे सब अंदर आए, उसने बच्चों को बोला, बच्चों आज से ये गार्डन, ये बगीचा तुम्हारा होगा. आज से तुम इसके मालिक होगे. आज के बाद तुम में से कोई भी यहाँ से नहीं जाएगा. मैं ये दीवार तोड़ रहा हूँ. And he goes and breaks down the wall. The children were happy. They visited his garden every day. The giant played with them and enjoyed their fun and games. But he always looked for the little boy whom he had put on the tree. That little boy was never there. So the children were happy. सारे बच्चे बड़े खुश हुए. They were very happy that finally the garden belongs to them. They can play as they like, as they wish. So they visited that garden every day. हर रोज सारे के सारे बच्चे बगीचे में आते, खेलते और जायंट भी उनके साथ खेलता कूदता था. लेकिन जायंट हमेशा उस बच्चे को खोजता था. उन बच्चों के बीच में वो उस बच्चे को खोजता था जिसकी उसने हेल्प करी थी. लेकिन वो बच्चा उसे कभी मिला नहीं, वो कभी उसको देख नहीं पाया उस दिन के बाद. Where is your little companion whom I had once put on the tree? asked the giant. We don't know, answered the children. We had never seen him before. We do not know where he lives. The giant looked out for him every day, but there was no sign of the little boy. The giant felt very sad. He wanted to see his little friend. तो जायंट ने दूसरों से पूछा दूसरे बच्चों से पूछा कि वो छोटा बच्चा कहाँ है जिसकी मैंने सहायता करी थी, जिसको मैंने पेड़ पे बैठाया था, वो आजकल दिखता नहीं है। तो सब बच्चों ने कहा कि भाई हम उसको जानते नहीं है, हमने भी उसी दिन उसको पहली बार देखा था, तो हमें पता नहीं है वो कौन है और कहाँ से आया है। The giant was eagerly waiting. He wanted to meet that little friend of his, but that friend never turned up. How to see him? He kept saying to himself as years went by. In the meanwhile, the giant grew old and feeble. He could no longer play with children, so he sat on an armchair and watched the children at play. How nice to have children around. They are the best flowers of my garden, said the giant to himself. तो जायंट जो है हमेशा अपने से पूछता था कि मैं उस बच्चे से कब मिल पाऊंगा, मैं उस बच्चे से कब देख पाऊंगा। और ऐसे सोचते सोचते दिन महीने में गुजर गए, महीने साल में गुजर गए, और धीरे धीरे तो जो जायंट था वो भी बूढ़ा हो चला था। अब वो बच्चों के साथ पहले जैसे नहीं खेल पाता था। तो उसने क्या किया, बरामदे में एक आराम कुर्सी रखी और उस पर बैठ के बच्चों का खेल देखता था। और वो कहने लगा कि मेरे जो असली बगीचे के फूल हैं वो ये सारे बच्चे हैं। सो आई लाइक टू हैव दिस चिल्ड्रन बिकॉज दे आर द फ्लावर्स ऑफ माई रियल गार्डन। One winter morning, he looked out of the window as he was dressing. Suddenly, he saw something lovely. In the furthest corner of his garden, a tree was covered with white blossoms. Its branches were golden and silver fruits hung down from them. Underneath stood the little boy whom he loved. अब एक सर्दी के दिन, सर्दी का मौसम था, एक सर्द भरी सुबह, वो अपने कपड़े पहन रहा था, ड्रेस कर रहा था। तब उसने देखा कि उसके बगीचे के कोने में, बहुत दूर कोने में एक पेड़ में सफेद रंग के फूल खिले हुए हैं, सफेद रंग के फूल, सफेद रंग के पत्ते खिले हुए हैं। पूरा का पूरा पेड़ सफेद रंग से भरा हुआ था और उसकी जो ब्रांचेस थी वो गोल्ड सिल्वर से बनी हुई थी और फ्रूट भी गोल्डन थे। उसी के पास में उसने देखा वो बच्चा जिसकी उसने सहायता करी थी वो भी वहीं खड़ा है और वो एकदम उसको मिलने के लिए बेतरफ दौड़ पड़ा। The giant ran down in great joy. The little boy has come back. My friend has come back to my garden, said the giant as he ran down the stairs. He hastened across the meadow and came near the child. वो जो giant था एकदम दौड़ के उस गार्डन उस कॉर्नर में पहुंचा, उस बच्चे से मिला वो और चिल्लाया, मेरा छोटा दोस्त आ गया है, मेरा छोटा दोस्त आ गया है, मैं उसे नहीं छोड़ूंगा, मैं उसके पास जाऊंगा। एंड he ran down stairs. दौड़ते हुए उसके पास पहुंच गया। Who are you, my little one? asked the giant. The child smiled at him and said, You allowed me to play once in your garden. Today I am going to take you to my garden in paradise. We shall be playing there forever. तो वो जाके पूछा, बेटा तुम हो कौन, तुम कौन हो, तुम कहाँ से आए हो, from where you have come, who are you, what is your name? And the child said, I am the same child whom you had allowed once to play in your garden, and today I have come to take to my garden. It is in paradise, to my paradise garden. I have come to take you. से बोला आज मैं तुम्हें अपने बगीचे में लेने के लिए आया हूँ। When the children came in the afternoon to play, they found the giant dead under the tree, which was full of white blossoms. So जब वो पहुंचे, बच्चे जब दोपहर को पहुंचे खेलने के लिए, उन्होंने देखा कि जो जायंट था वो मर चुका था और उसकी पूरी बॉडी में सफेद फूल से ढका गया था। When the children all came, they all saw that the giant had died and his body was covered with the flowers. Thank you.